So a lot has happened with Conan the Barbarian since we last covered him way back in episode 51 of the Random Trade Review. At that time, Dark Horse Comics held a license to the Conan property, and it looked like it would continue to hold the license for quite some time.
Then in 2018, it was announced that Marvel had reacquired the Conan license, which they originally held from 1970 to 1995. The announcement came with much fanfare, as the Cimmerian would even be brought into the Marvel Universe proper, even joining a group in the form of the Savage Avengers. The boom really did not last, as it seemed fans were way more interested in reprinted material from the original Marvel Conan run than they were in any new stories. Which in turn was also kind of strange, as Dark Horse was already reprinting the Marvel Conans from back in the day, outside of a few what-if issues that acted as crossovers with the Marvel Universe.
Added to all that, a quirk in European publishing copyright laws resulted in the fact that the original Robert E. Howard Conan stories are in the public domain over there, which meant that U.S. companies could translate those European stories, bring them over to the United States, and then publish them under titles like The Cimmerian or Sword and Sorcery, as the name Conan the Barbarian is trademarked to the estate of Robert E. Howard. And let's not even get started on the fact that Robert E. Howard died at the age of 30 without fathering children, yet somehow he still has an estate.
Anyway, in 2022, it was announced that Titan Publishing had acquired the Conan license after Marvel chose not to renew it. I believe that there is possibly an exception that allows Marvel to reprint Savage Avengers, but I'm not entirely sure of it, as Titan has already announced new collections of the original Marvel Omnibus.
During the 4-year span where Marvel had reacquired the Conan license, they attempted to expand on the universe of the future King of Aquilonia by doing some stories involving his most noteworthy supporting characters. Case in point, the pirate queen Valeria.
Valeria debuted in Howard's last written Conan story, The Red Nails, and struck an obvious chord with Conan as she was able to balance femininity with the cutthroat nature of piracy. The character made such an impact with Conan readers that when Conan was adapted for the big screen in 1982, Sandahl Bergman's thief character actually bore the name Valeria, although in reality this was just an amalgamation of several female characters Howard created.
Marvel decided to publish a 5-issue miniseries that would take a look at the backstory of Valeria and see what put her on the path to becoming what she eventually became, and that's what we're looking at today. This is Age of Conan, Valeria.
Valeria was born to a merchant couple in Aquilonia during the never-ending battles of the neighboring city-state of Numidia. Her older brother Cassian would join the Aquilonian Royal Guard and then spend the next 9 years climbing the ranks, when one day Valeria had to hide under the floorboards as mercenary pirates slaughtered her parents. A little over a decade later, and Valeria acts as something as unofficial law enforcement in town. She's been saving and plotting and set forth on a path of revenge. For you see, as she was raised by her older brother Cassian, she vowed to train to become a Mitran knight like he did, and thus avenge her parents to set forth and take out her killers. Though Cassian did not fully approve of this, his fellow knight Antonius took Valeria under his wing and trained her in the art of swordplay in such a manner so that she learned everything, and that he would in no way betray the family later. Back in the present, Valeria pays a visit to the local blacksmith, who's named Lorenz, in order to inquire about the owner of a particular blade that is in her possession. Unfortunately, she only succeeds in spooking the smith's son and engaging in a minor skirmish. It turns out that Lorenz is out of town on a matter with the king, but Valeria can stay at the dwelling until he returns. As she sleeps, Valeria dreams of the day she acquired the sword, when it was plunged into the body of her brother Cassian by someone who was totally not Antonius. It's then that she's roused from her slumber by a returning Lorenz, who tries to attack her for possessing the sword of a Mitran knight.
Aquilonia and Numidia are based on the Holy Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, respectively, while the god Mitra, who shares the name with a deity from Vedic and Zoroastrian religions, basically is the god of both city-states as well, and thus is worshipped by both peoples.
Lorenz may be one hell of a blacksmith, but he's not exactly much of a fighter, and Valeria takes him down with relative ease. It turns out he's actually very worried, as members of the Mitran Knights have been disappearing over the last few years, and anyone in Aquilonia who aided them once has been threatened into silence. Valeria explains that she only wishes to return the sword to its original owner and fulfill her late brother's wishes. Lorenz directs her towards the Mitran monastery on the outskirts of town, where the monks might have some more information. Valeria begins riding out towards the monastery, only to quite literally get roped in by a group of bandits. Thankfully, before any type of violating could commence, she manages to start fighting back and take them down, though she winds up sustaining quite a bit of damage to herself in the process. The last living bandit lets slip that they're actually mercenaries paid to attack those who ride on the road at night, especially if they're heading towards the monastery. Valeria kills him and then with her last bit of strength makes it to the monastery and knocks on the door before passing out on the doorstep.
By the way, if you were expecting Conan the Barbarian to pop up at any point during this, yeah, sorry, that just doesn't happen.
The monks take Valeria in and she spends the next few weeks recuperating and trying to get back to fighting shape, which doesn't exactly give her wounds much time to heal. The monks do allow her to try to look up information on the owner of the sword, but she's really interested in one monk who just seems to avoid her the whole time. One night, she tries slipping out of her room to try to track down this monk, only to suddenly collapse and have him come to her aid, though she briefly recognizes his face as she passes out. Worse yet, when Valeria comes to the next day, the monastery is being attacked by Aquilonian forces that are launching giant fiery catapult shots into the monastery and demanding that a certain traitor be turned over within the next 24 hours. Having her suspicions aroused when she spots the monk from before talking with Father Romano, the head of the monastery, she waits for the father to leave and follows said monk back to his room. It's there that she finally confronts who she's been looking for this whole time: Antonius, the traitor in question, and the killer of Cassian.
I'm sure that factoid comes as a major surprise to all of you.
Valeria does not go for the kill right away, instead asking Antonius about the invading army. He explains that the forces are being led by the Aquilonian High Steward known as Blasius, who Valeria remembers visiting her home frequently in her youth. The memories are enough for her to elect not killing Antonius right away, and instead deciding to sneak out and confront Blasius at his camp. The mentioning of Cassian's name allows for Blasius to piece together Valeria's identity and explain that Antonius and the Veteran Knights were conspiring to kill the king of Aquilonia and take over the country for themselves. Cassian, however, was working for Blasius as a double agent.
Cassian was already something of an outlier to the Mitran Knights, who usually inherit their position through family lineage. He, however, as we previously mentioned, was the son of a merchant who literally had to fight his way onto the team, which, in a way, could make him more loyal to the king. That is, of course, unless, Blasius is lying.
The knights found out about Cassian's betrayal and had Antonius kill him. That being said, Valeria isn't entirely trusting of the steward and does her best research to try to find any possible bit of truth. Finally, she decides that Antonius must die anyway, and the next night she decides to make her move. That being said, Antonius has been expecting this attack for a while and set up the old rolled-up blankets and pillow diversionary tactic. Unfortunately, though, Valeria is no longer in the mood to talk and simply just wants to know why exactly Antonius killed her brother. He admits that he did kill Cassian, but there's a lot more to it than that. Cassian was a beloved member of the Mitran Knights. He was brave, charitable, and loved the attention. After he took Valeria in, he treated her with the best aspects of life. The best clothing, the best education, even taking her horseback riding. However, much of that really could not be covered on an army grunt's salary.
So Cassian became something of a hired gun, or I guess sword in this case. He would steal, he would spy, he would even go as far as to kill a foreign ambassador, all at the behest of Blasius. I don't think I even need the dramatic look over for this revelation.
When Antonius attempted to confront Cassian grabbed his accuser's sword and plunged it into his own chest, electing for death before dishonor. To prove his story, Antonius presents Valeria with a letter from Blasius to Cassian that he found just before he left the premises. With that in mind, Valeria elects not to kill Antonius and instead re-infiltrates Blasius' camp and kills him, and then sets out to a life of avenging those who need it. I guess.
And that concludes our look at Age of Conan, Valeria. How was it? Well, I do think the artwork is pretty good throughout the whole story, and there's some very nice grounded characterization throughout it as well. Unfortunately, that's kind of where the compliments really end. I feel this story is just way too short. That gives it this kind of rushed pacing at times, where we're just jumping from scene to scene to scene, we're not taking time to breathe and maybe do some other stuff. I feel like Valeria is a character who should have been expanded on. This character is supposed to be a pirate. Why are we not seeing any of that stuff? Why not do something where, she's on a ship and then she, as she comes into port briefly, she catches a glimpse of Antonius or Blasius and starts piecing things together and starts trying to avenge her brother that way. Or, maybe at the end of the story we could see her getting a job on a ship or just something like that that shows her actually going on that path that I said earlier. But no, we just don't get that. We don't even get to see her kill Blasius. It's just she leaves Antonius alone in the monastery, and then just cut to Blush's dead body. That's it. Like, it's just so uneven and so badly rushed. Like I said, there's no way I could really get into these characters. And, well, I did cite the grunted characterization earlier. In a way, that's not what I expect of when I expect a Conan the Barbarian story or something set in the world of Conan the Barbarian. I expect the over-the-top stuff. I expect the violence. I expect the blood. I expect the sex. There's none of that here. I mean, there's a little bit of graphic violence here and there, but other than that, no. It's like the most adult thing that happens is a groping, and that's it. It's just like not what I get when I, open up a Conan book. So yeah, I kind of have to mark this as a bit of a disappointment. I am going to have to give Age of Conan Valeria a D. And with that, let's see what we're doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Hey guys, remember you can help support the channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcat productions. There you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. And as always, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.